The air was thick with the scent of chlorine and freshly cut grass, the kind of summer evening where the world feels like it's holding its breath. I stood on the edge of our neighborhood pool, watching my daughter, Lila, slice through the water like a knife through silk. Her laughter rang out, sharp and bright, mixing with the splash of her kicks. At 8 years old, she was fearless, her small body diving into the deep end without hesitation. I smiled, my chest swelling with pride, until I heard her voice, like nails on a chalkboard, cutting through the humid air. "Excuse me, excuse me. That girl needs to get out. My son has priority here." Karen. The Homeowners Association queen, her blonde bob as stiff as her attitude, stood with her hands on her hips, her son, Timmy, slouched behind her, clutching a pool noodle like a lifeline. I turned, my jaw tightening. Priority? Lila's been here for 10 minutes. It's a public pool, Karen. Her eyes narrowed, a venomous glint in them, like a snake sizing up its prey. Public? This is our community pool, and my Timmy's been waiting all day. He's sensitive, you know. He needs this. Timmy, a lanky 12-year-old with a permanent scowl, didn't look like he needed anything but a nap. Lila, oblivious, kept swimming, her stroke steady, her giggles echoing. Karen's lips pursed, and I could almost hear the gears grinding in her head. "I'm calling the Homeowners Association board. And if that doesn't work, I'll call the police." My heart stuttered. The police? Over a kid swimming? I wanted to laugh, but the threat landed like a punch to the gut. This wasn't the first time Karen had thrown her weight around. She'd been the neighborhood's self-appointed dictator since we moved in last year, issuing fines for untrimmed hedges, policing mailbox colors, even scolding kids for chalk drawings on the sidewalk. But this? This was personal. Lila was my world, my little warrior who'd fought through asthma and a shy streak to find her confidence in that pool. And now Karen wanted to rip that away because her precious Timmy deserved it more. I swallowed the rage bubbling in my throat, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Let's talk this out, Karen. No need for cops." She smirked, already pulling out her phone. Too late. The next hour was a blur of humiliation. 2 officers arrived, their radios crackling, their boots heavy on the pool deck. Neighbors peeked from their porches, curtains twitching like guilty consciences. Lila climbed out of the pool, her wet hair plastered to her face, her eyes wide with confusion. "Dad, did I do something wrong?" she whispered, her voice small, trembling. I knelt beside her, my hands shaking as I wrapped her in a towel. "No, baby. You're perfect." My voice cracked, and I hated it, hated how powerless I felt as Karen stood there, arms crossed, triumphant. The cops, clearly annoyed to be there, asked a few questions, confirmed the pool was open to all residents, and left with a warning to keep the peace. But the damage was done. Lila's spark was dimmed, her joy stolen by Karen's petty crusade. That night, I couldn't sleep. The memory of Lila's quivering lip haunted me, her question looping in my mind, did I do something wrong? I sat on the edge of my bed, the house quiet except for the faint hum of the AC and the distant chirp of crickets. My wife, Sarah, stirred beside me, her voice soft but firm. "You can't let this go, Mike. She's terrorizing everyone, not just us." Sarah was right. Karen's reign of terror had gone unchecked for too long. The Homeowners Association meetings were her stage, her complaints a script she'd perfected. But this time, she'd crossed a line. I wasn't just fighting for Lila, I was fighting for every kid, every neighbor, who'd been bullied into submission by her clipboard and her smugness. The next morning, I started digging. Karen's power came from her control over the Homeowners Association, but control like that always leaves cracks. I spent hours poring over the Homeowners Association bylaws, a dense packet of rules I'd ignored until now. The legalese made my eyes glaze over, but then I found it, a clause about misuse of authority. If an Homeowners Association member acted in bad faith, they could be removed. My pulse quickened. This was it, a way to hit back. But I needed proof, something undeniable. That's when I remembered Mrs. Alvarez. Mrs. Alvarez lived 3 houses down, a quiet widow who kept to herself. She'd mentioned something at last month's block party, a passing comment about Karen fudging the pool maintenance logs to justify her fines. I hadn't thought much of it then, but now it felt like a lifeline. I knocked on her door that afternoon, the scent of her rose garden sharp in the air. She answered, her gray hair pulled back, her eyes wary but kind. "Mike, what's this about?" I explained everything, Lila, the pool, Karen's threats. Mrs. Alvarez sighed, long and heavy, like she'd been carrying a secret too long. "I didn't want to get involved," she said, "but Karen's been skimming the homeowners association funds. Small amounts, but I saw her change the ledgers. I've got copies." My heart leapt. This was bigger than I'd expected. Mrs. Alvarez handed me a folder, her hands trembling slightly. "Be careful, Mike. She's vindictive." The folder was a goldmine, doctored receipts, altered logs, and a paper trail showing Karen had funneled nearly $2,000 into her own account over the past year. It wasn't just about the pool anymore. This was fraud. This was justice. The homeowners association meeting was set for Friday, and I spent the week rallying neighbors. Most were hesitant, scared of Karen's wrath, but a few, Mrs. Alvarez, the young couple across the street, even Timmy's former babysitter, who'd quit because of Karen's oversight, agreed to speak up. The meeting room smelled of stale coffee and cheap air freshener, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Karen sat at the head of the table, her usual throne, her smile as sharp as a blade. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips as I stood, clutching the folder like a weapon. "Karen," I began, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach, "you've been abusing your power." The room went silent, a collective intake of breath. Her smile faltered, just for a second. "Excuse me," she snapped, but I didn't stop. I laid out the evidence, Lila's humiliation, the frivolous fines, the doctored ledgers. Mrs. Alvarez spoke next, her voice soft but unwavering, detailing Karen's theft. The babysitter, barely 20, recounted how Karen had berated her for letting Timmy eat a non-organic apple. The couple across the street shared their own story, a $200 fine for a non-compliant mailbox that Karen herself had approved. Karen's face turned scarlet, her hands gripping the table. "This is slander," she shouted, but the room was turning. Neighbors who'd stayed silent for years began to murmur, then speak, their voices rising like a tide. "You fined me for my dog barking once," one said. "You threatened to tow my car for parking an inch over the line," another added. Karen's empire was crumbling, and she knew it. She stood, her chair scraping against the floor, and pointed at me. "You'll regret this," she hissed before storming out. The vote to remove her was unanimous. By the end of the night, Karen was no longer homeowners association president. The room erupted in applause, a release of years of pent-up frustration. I felt a weight lift, but it wasn't over. The next day, I filed a formal complaint with the police, attaching Mrs. Alvarez's evidence. Karen was charged with petty theft, a small crime but enough to stain her pristine reputation. The neighborhood buzzed with the news, whispers of "finally" and "about time" floating through the air like fireflies. A week later, I took Lila back to the pool. The sun was setting, painting the water gold. She hesitated at the edge, her toes curling against the warm concrete. "It's okay, Dad?" she asked, her voice still carrying that flicker of doubt. I knelt beside her, my hand on her shoulder, the scent of her strawberry shampoo grounding me. "It's more than okay, kiddo. This is your pool." She grinned, that fearless spark reigniting, and dove in, her splash loud and defiant. I watched her swim, each stroke a middle finger to Karen's tyranny. Justice didn't erase the hurt, but it gave us back our freedom. And as Lila's laughter filled the air, I knew we'd won something bigger than a pool, we'd won our voice.